Hey, good evening, everybody. We're meeting with my friend Jef Bourgeau, and Jef is in Detroit. And, we've spoken previously about how there are lots of different art worlds. And there are some people like Zolla. Hey, Jef, I don't know if you've ever been compared to Zolla before, who create their own paradigms. Who do something. The art world is one of those places where you can know the rules and follow them, or you can know the rules and totally ignore them. And then, so sort of what Jef is dealing with, and Jef has been an artist and is the founder of the Museum of New Art. And that has a really great acronym, MONA. And so, Jef, I want to know all kinds of things, but let's start talking about the museum, and then we'll go backwards from there. When did it start? Why did it start? What came over you?
Okay, I was an artist in Detroit. At that time, there was a lot more opportunity than there is now. There were probably 20 mainstream galleries that would network and connect you to galleries in New York or LA or Chicago or anywhere else. And that's where I started. I had a gallery, it was OK Harris in Detroit. They had a branch here. And I got a show in Chicago. And I drove the show there, or the show was there, and I was driving back. It's about a 4-hour trip back, and I was thinking on the way back, am I still there? Anyway,
yep.
I kind of lost here. I was just thinking, why does an artist have to go to Chicago or anywhere else from Detroit to create a career? Why can't we create a career in Detroit proper? And one of the answers was we didn't have a contemporary museum. There were a lot of other reasons. Chicago had no art examiner. Having a magazine to publicize and put out what artists were doing in any city is great. But the museum was the main thing. And so on the trip back, I thought, well, how can I start a museum? What do you need? You need rich patrons. You need a big building. And so by the time I got back, I went to a friend, or somebody not really a friend, just somebody I kind of knew, had talked to. I'd moved into a new gallery, and I knew he had a small space. It was pretty much a walk-in closet, and I talked him into letting me take that. He's going to give it to me free, but I offered him $1 a year. And that's where Mona started, and this walk-in closet. And initially I just ripped things out of, cut things out of art magazines and matted and framed them and put them in this little closet from the floor to the ceiling. And that's where we began, and it didn't take long. I mean, one of the first shows was called Blind Me, after Matthew Collins' catalog on British artists. And that catalog was essentially about the lives that he had, the interactions he had had with the artists, not so much about their art. So by showing the art in the space, I had over 100 British artists. It was a nice compliment to have this catalog, but it was only, the space wasn't big enough to put a pedestal and the book on top of it. I bought one book. So I put it outside the space and with the catalog on top of it. And the day before the show opened, this is Detroit, in the middle of nowhere in 1997. I got a call from London. It was a voicemail. They heard that I was using their book as the museum catalog, and they wanted to talk to me about it. So I went out and I bought another catalog, and I took a ruler and a Sharpie, and I crossed out every line in the book because I figured they were going to give me hell about using this, and that way I could put the censored version out. And anyway, I called the next day. The woman was wonderful. She asked what I was doing, and I told her, and she said, no problem, just give us credit. And so I put out the catalog. And people came and saw art they'd never seen anywhere else. There's kind of a 10-year lag. I don't know about other cities, but at the Art Institute here in Detroit, there's a 10-year lag of contemporary art. So you can go into the new acquisition room, and you're seeing stuff from the 80s and the 90s. So you're seeing Schnabel and Sally and people like that, which is great, but it's a 10-year lag. So that was the initial thing. And all my support.
Jef, what was the date?
It was like 1997.
Okay.
And what was great about it was the support wasn't from the art community. The art community was up in arms. People would come from New York and say, well, we heard that you have this contemporary museum, take us to it. And I heard stories that it made us look like hayseeds because they'd come to this walk-in closet with these images from magazines. and that's not a real museum. And part of what I was trying to do as an art project for myself, but also to kind of be a thorn in the side of the art world here, so that they would have the guts. I mean, there's so much money here, and especially then with the big three, and some of the, every time you open up a magazine with the top 20 collectors, there's always Stuart Nexon, Frankel, or Gil Silverman with his Fluxus collection, 10 or 20 other people, but they wouldn't open up a contemporary museum. So I was a thorn in their side, and that was fine. So the support I got initially, and since then, actually all the way through, has been from the public, the so-called layperson who doesn't know much about art, but they think that Detroit needs it. So from that one little walk-in closet, I got an offer to come to Detroit proper, right downtown in the business section, which is completely empty at the time. Everything was boarded up and still is on Washington Boulevard, and given the second floor of a skyscraper there. And that's pretty much where we started doing our bigger shows. And
so Zolla, who every time you look in an art book, they had pictures of everybody, Rauschenberg and Johns, and you turn to Zolla, there's no picture. Like, does this guy really exist? He doesn't do his own art, he has other people do it for him. But we were doing an auction to kick off the downtown space, and Saul called up and said, I've got this print here, but I don't have it matted and framed. I thought, what a sweet guy, you know? And I said, it doesn't matter. I'm thinking it's a Zolla, just send it. But he sent it, it was matted and framed, and so he did exist, at least on the phone. That's beautiful. You've sort of been a thorn in the establishment side all along, though, right? I mean, you're not particularly interested in kowtowing to who you perceive the authorities to be.
Yeah, I think part of it is I think part of it, the questions that I was asking were the ones that you were talking about earlier. You know, who decides the art? And in Detroit, I think it is the people with the money, the people that run the museums, who are the people with the money. It's kind of a social club, and that's why they were really adamant about not having a contemporary museum here. They thought that would drain their pool of funding, and but they're all aging, and the galleries were aging. So that now, when I started, there were 20-some galleries. We're down to 3 galleries that you can. I mean, there's plenty of student-run galleries or storefront galleries that pop up and go away. But the traditional way for an artist to get into a gallery and move out from Detroit, we're down to 3 or 4, and one just died, the director. The other one has brain cancer, and the third one, nobody quite knows what's going on. They're shut, and they may reopen or not. So the opportunities aren't here like they were. The artists, I don't know what it's like other places, but it's changed here from the 90s too, and I think that's one reason why the gallery started to fail. The artists aren't as supportive as they used to be. So if you were stable in one artist, you'd go to the other artists' openings to support them. But also at the same time, collectors would come to meet the whole stable, and if they liked somebody that they're talking to, you could go in the back and pull out one of your own paintings, even though you weren't the artist that was soloing. So that kind of disappeared. You saw fewer and fewer of the artists that showed at these galleries showing up at their places, and often they'd be showing at other galleries at the same time. So there wasn't a sense of loyalty and support, and I think that helped break things down too here.
Do you think of yourself as an alternative gallery, or do you think of yourself as an alternative museum or something else?
I've always thought of it as an artist project, and in the beginning I created this Museum of New Arts with fictitious administrators. It came out of Jane Speaks Modern Art, who's a made-up person. I hired an actress to go around and to go to all the other galleries as Jane. She had a French accent, so she was very impressive. And so when I had Jane die in a boating accident off the Cape Verde Islands, there were quotes in the paper when I published her obituary, which is phony, that some people had never met her. What a great loss for the Detroit art world. And it's like, but you never met her and she didn't exist. So it was always kind of blurred those things. But one of the critics at the time said a lot of shadows and mirrors, but with a real purpose in mind to ask these questions like who decides art. The artist makes the art, throws it out there against the wall like a piece of spaghetti, and but then who decides, what's the line on your way to the museum, and once it is in the museum, who's decided who put it there? And as a museum, it was to ask those questions, but also I think the public is the last in this line. They get to go once it's all decided. One of the reasons why the DIA, the Art Institute here, is slow, they want 10-year lag so that they can be sure that it's been, validated as art. So they're not going to take chances and look embarrassed.
You think they'd say the same thing?
Yeah, because it happened to them.
You do?
About them or about me?
You think they would say that they have an intentional 10-year lag to cut down on errors?
I think so. They see themselves as an encyclopedic museum, not as a contemporary museum. So that's part of the deal here. Do you feel that Mona is a work of art of yours? I think it's shared. It's just like interactive. It's been, the audience has been a big part of it. The artists have been a big part of it. I kind of, it'd be like a happening or something. I think the happenings, what happened when they started going south was when the audience stopped being part of the happening, when they had seating and they became the audience. I think when people would walk into an Oldenburg happening and not sure what was going on, it was more of a party atmosphere. I think that was much more interesting and more of a interactive thing than creating an audience that's separate. So part of what I've been trying to do is to allow the audience to be part of the art itself, and whether it was have the audience itself become part of the art. So we did a show called Shoot, where I had a bunch of photographers from the Detroit, Windsor area come in. It opened up without anything on the walls, and we had an opening where everybody's picture was taken, and throughout the month, every person that visited the museum had their photograph taken. So we had a closing reception where the audience became the show. Their pictures became all of it. At the other extreme was Kaboom, where we had over 150 different pieces of artwork that were to be destroyed by the audience. The one story I liked was Heinz Steinbach. I asked him for a piece, and he sent back a note: "You break it, you buy it." So I sent him this horrible letter saying, "I can't believe you're saying this. You're the guy that's supposed to be, a cultural, I'm against this, and it's all bad." And he wrote back and said, "No, you idiot. I want you to put that on the wall." So, and that was the best criticism I ever had was Father was leaving that space. We had balloons full of paint to throw at the paintings and other things to destroy. We had a replica of Duchamp's urinal that could be broken. Unfortunately, somebody urinated in it, and somebody set a fire in it. And but a kid was leaving, this little kid who was about 7, and he looked at me and said, "This is the best time I've had anywhere." And so that was great. So then we did a project downtown. The whole street, that whole area is empty. It's where Eminem filmed his 8 Mile movie. So a lot of empty buildings to use. So I found out who the landlords were of 6 of the spaces, the storefronts, and they'd been closed up since the 70s. So I went and got the keys and told them we'd have artists move in, some small collectives, and clean them up and paint them up and make them look good. And we did it, and we opened them up on a Friday. People were walking around downtown Detroit, places where they never would have walked before. They had glasses of wine, and it's like, this is like any other city. And so we opened on a Friday. By Monday, the first gallery had already been rented, and it lasted about 3 months before all those spaces were rented out, which is another thing that hasn't happened here, which happens in other cities like Chicago, New York, or Philadelphia, where you let the artists take over a certain area and it eventually becomes gentrified. The cafes move in. I had a friend in Philadelphia where the university, not the city, sponsored her area where she was living, and she eventually had to move out because she couldn't afford the rent there anymore because the artist had changed the whole face of it. And I know Chicago, places that I used to show, I'd go back every year, and all of a sudden there'd be this huge condo just kind of dropped out of the sky in the middle of all this blight. And the next year you go back and it's spreading, not the blight, but the development. And so it's amazing. And there are always cranes in Chicago. We haven't seen that in Detroit in a long time. So
I don't think anybody sees what you're doing anywhere else except, you know, your place.
Yeah, I don't think anybody sees what I'm doing. There's one person, the first director of, the founding director of the MCA in Chicago, Jan
Vandermark. Yeah.
He got it in a second. And I told him once that it's like that last Leonardo DiCaprio movie with Scorsese, but they were old prison movies from the 40s, where a cop or an undercover newspaper man goes into the prisons or whatever, and only the editor knows about that he's a cop or something. And I said, you're the only one that really knows what I'm doing, so if you die, you know, you can't die, you know, or nobody will know. You got to be the one to spread the word. But Jan died, unfortunately.
I feel like what you're doing is successful. I feel like you're a success. And I feel like Mona is a success. Do you
well, I think
feel the same way?
I think it's helped me, and I think it's helped other people understand who decides art. I think it's helped ruffle feathers. We got a letter early on. I sent out press releases, and we got a letter from Thomas Krenz at the Guggenheim saying that not to send them any more press releases, or they return them unopened, because Detroit wasn't germane to their interests. And it's like, why did you even send this letter? Why don't you just throw them away? But yeah, I told some friends and they got upset that were in the art world. So yeah, it's amazing where Detroit has fit in or hasn't fit into the art world.
How often these days do you show real art by real people, mostly from Detroit?
I've done probably over 800 artists in the last 10 years.
Even now in the last 6 months.
In the last 6 months, what happened in where the space is now, I have the entire building, which is 7 galleries, and it used to be a music theater, which had 2 stories in it. When I had that, we were showing plenty, but 2 years ago, the city of Pontiac, where it's located just out of Detroit, had this thing called the Phoenix Rising because of Pontiac, the car was made there in the Phoenix. But anyway, the notion was that they would give anybody that was a business free space. They'd give them a 2-year lease. The first year is entirely free, and they could walk away without penalty anytime within that first year. So all these businesses moved into the spaces that I've been using because I've never paid rent. And that's, again, it's not the art world. It's these landlords that feel that art is important to what's happening in development anywhere. Most of them are doctors. They're not even doctors. They're in the music business or something else. They're just regular guys. So yeah, I lost all the spaces about a year ago, and most of them opened up for a week, then closed. But they had the keys, and I couldn't get them back for a year. One woman had a purse store in there, and she tried every day, but nothing happens because it's Pontiac. I mean, it's like downtown Detroit. People aren't going to go there to buy jeans, but they can go to a shopping mall. So I've gotten most of them back. I've reconnected with some contacts at Cranbrook Academy, grad school, CCS, and Wayne State students and graduates. So I'm reconnecting right now and planning on starting all that up again. But up until then, you know, it was constant. We were doing another program where we were sending Detroit artists, Europe artists, to Chicago, and we brought Chicago artists into that space. And then we went from there. We thought, well, why not Europe? The idea was to take Detroit artists places that they couldn't go because we didn't have the galleries to send them. So I was going on the Canadian model. Jef Bourgeau and those people from Vancouver and wherever, Toronto, they worked their way through Europe and came back to New York that way. So they built up their resume and their reputation. So we started with Berlin, which was great, exchanged, and then to Austria, and then to Beijing, and then eventually we'll do New York now that we got the spaces back. But I have no money. This is all I do. I'm not independently wealthy. Every so often I can sell my own art. to help buy some lights or something. But so you become creative, and the best way to do it, I decided, was work on paper. You roll them up in a tube. It costs $200 to $300 to send over, and you have 12 artists that you send over, and you can do. The place in Beijing was huge. It was like a hangar. It was a beautiful space, and you fill it up, and then they send their work over here, and you fill up. I filled up the galleries in Pontiac with the Austrians and the Germans and the Chinese, and what was interesting was when we sent it to Beijing, I thought, well, this is going to be great because we're going to see what the Chinese think of Detroit artists. But it's kind of naive because the Chinese weren't the ones going to the galleries. It was Westerners there trolling for Chinese art. So all the photographs I got back were of Westerners and not the Chinese. Unfortunately, there aren't that many that can afford art at that level. So
wait a minute. You did these reciprocal exchange exhibits.
Yeah.
In how many foreign countries? At least 4, 5?
Well, if you include Chicago.
Sure, we'll be foreign.
Yeah, well, Chicago worked, and that proved that we could do it. And so from there, it was 3. It was Bregenz, Austria, and I tried other places, and it came close, but it fell through, like London and even Iceland. But every gallery in Belgium, every gallery I contacted, because Detroit's hot outside of Detroit, they all agreed. And so we ended up with Berlin and Beijing after the Austria show. And then we were going to do New York because I think everybody had their creds, and it's a good window of opportunity, I think, for Detroit artists. There are always people that come back and speak at the DIA or wherever, the museums here. The other night there were 5 curators from around the world, from Edinburgh and Cape Liverpool and Singapore, and they're all singing the praises of Detroit and its art scene, how it's bringing back Detroit. But within the city itself, like I said, it's not happening. It's like the electronic music. You know, it was hot everywhere. Nobody here even knew about it. So it's a window of opportunity, and it's not going to be there forever. So
let's focus on these creative things, though, because I think artists can extrapolate from them. You know, these exchange exhibits that you did. So how many artists did you send to these Berlin, Beijing? How many people?
It would range from 12 to 15.
And it would be, so that work didn't travel from Berlin to Beijing. It came home and then you sent
other artists. It came home, we did a new group of artists, a new group of work, and we sent it over.
How did you decide which artists you were going to be sending?
There was different groups, different friends, and, you know, pick a number and let's see what we can do.
Was the work cohesive? Did it make, I mean, did you have a thematic exhibit, or was just 8 people from Detroit?
No, it made sense in a way. First of all, it's all on paper, so it helped a lot. And we get the measurements from the gallery. And since I had like, I don't know how many, 20,000 square feet in the building at the time, including the big old theater. So we'd map out which walls would fit the gallery that we're going to, and then we'd lay out the show that way. The artists would bring in their work, and we decide what would go up. And then we'd know that we weren't sending too much or too little. And so
how far in advance would you start selecting the work for these shows?
Well, that was amazing, because I thought, I know galleries, and usually have your show set up at least a year in advance. So the first one in Berlin, I contacted her, and she said, how about next month? And I thought she meant she wanted to send her artists over here. I said, no, bring the Detroit artists over here next month. I've got a plot that I've got to fill. And it was that way with all of them. It was like within a year we were in the 3 galleries. So it was pop, 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 you know, and so it was exciting. And we had some people that were really anal, and they'd build the tubes and, you know, fine-tune them and make sure that they were super safe. It was fun. It was exciting.
How did this idea happen? I remember you and I talked about it really early, and then I forgot about it, and then you know, harangued my ass.
Well, after doing this for 12 years, you realize that you're kind of beating your head against the wall in Detroit to get people here to look at Detroit art, because they're looking at New York and LA,
yeah,
the collectors and everybody else. So it's like, how do you get their attention? The only way you can do it is to send it out to those other places and create some sort of reputation for Detroit art. when they did the Art Basel in Miami a couple years ago, I heard that they're going to have a big place, I forget where it was, anyway, it was a big place somewhere where they're going to include, there were 4 cities and Detroit was included. And I thought, great, you know, finally Detroit Art's going to have a great platform somewhere else in Miami. Well, it turned out that they were taking the music scene and bands, and it had nothing to do with the art. So, yeah, that was the only way to propel it. You just throw it out there, like I said, like the spaghetti on the art world wall and hope it sticks. And
so how did that work? Did a bunch of Detroit show up to look at art from Germany and China, or did they stay away?
Yeah, and it was amazing. I mean, when we brought the Austrians over, and every show I've ever done has always gotten at least 1 article or 2. And we've lost all our art critics here now at the 2 major papers, and those papers merged. And there's kind of anyway, so we've got the freebies, and that's usually what you go. But we always got press, and it didn't bring anybody in. But when the Austrians came, they had like 2 weeks to set up, and they were up in like 2 days. So they went all through all the galleries and museums and met people, and that created kind of a buzz. So by the time of the opening, and we have 7 galleries in the theater, and it was like you couldn't walk through the place. It was elbow to elbow, and
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
My theory has been that these exchange exhibits don't work as well as if you did a show with Detroit artists and Beijing artists together. And that way, Detroit's going to come to see the Detroit artists and learn something about the Beijing artists and vice versa. Your experience seems to be that just showing it and getting enough buzz around it does plenty of justice unto it itself, right?
Right, because you don't have the opportunity here to see this art. Like I said, there's a real lag in the art institute in showing contemporary art. So the people that care about those things, I mean, we've got great art schools that are pumping artists out all the time. Cranbrook, U of M has a good program. Wayne State, College for Creative Studies. So those artists are being pumped out, and they're paying as much as the doctor pays for their tuition, but there's nothing waiting for them at the end of it. You know, they're just artists out on the street and nowhere to show. So, did you go to any of these exhibits out of town? I partnered up with Mercedes because their U.S. headquarters was in Detroit, and the guy that ran it, Klaus Intiman, was a sweetheart and really supportive of Detroit art in a major way, probably because his wife was too. And unfortunately, he's become the global CEO and he's moved back to Stuttgart. But I talked to them and I got some funding to allow all the Detroit artists to go over, to pay for their ticket and give them money for a hotel. Got a grant from them, but not enough for me, so I stayed back. But that was really generous of you to say. You could have just stayed in the penthouse and left them behind. I know. I could have taken the $12,000 to see you guys. Yeah, no, you did the right thing, though, Jeff. That's really good. So that must have been really great for the Detroit artists to be able to get to make that trip. Yeah, it was. And it was great to see the pictures that came back because they plastered posters all over the city that said "Made in Detroit" with an image from the show. So that was really exciting to see. Not just they made a lot of money with T-shirts that said that, I'm sure. Did the foreign artists ever come to Detroit? They did too, and that was great. The only ones that couldn't come were the Chinese because there was too much hassle with red tape. But yeah, the Berlin artists came, and the Austrians came, like I said before. And they were the ones that got the buzz really going. All right, now I think some of these are really great ideas that visual artists can extrapolate from and get together with their friends or their peers and emulate some of the kinds of creative things that have succeeded for you. Can you name any more? Well, go out and find a space. When I started, I'm saying because somebody commented how the other night when the 5 curators were talking, every other word was dumb. So I'm going to say that for a while now, I guess I mentioned it. Just to go out and find out who owns a space that's been empty and see if they're willing to give you a space as an artist or a collective. Tell them you'll clean it up, you'll make it livable, and work out some sort of, short-term agreement, say 3 months, give us free rent, we'll fix it up, and after that we'll work out some other agreement. And it doesn't have to be a place that has heat necessarily, because there's plenty. The place in whatever it is in Nebraska or wherever, the soap factory or something like that. It has no, it's Minneapolis, I mean, it doesn't have heat, and so it's not open in the winter. So there are things amenities you can live without, and the only thing we had in the first Mono was a toilet, and we had to shut it down in the winter because it would freeze up. But so that would be one way. What's your batting
average of asking people for space?
They asked me. When I opened up the first real museum space in Pontiac, I got a call like a week later that the skyscraper, the tower down in Detroit, the woman that owned it wanted us to come down there, and our rent would be free too. And then when they were closing, they shut down that whole beautiful building. It was one of the early places, skyscrapers built in Detroit, like 1911 by an Italian architect. Anyway, it's all boarded up now because she lost it. But I got a call almost the next day from somebody, a music entrepreneur, and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm looking for a space." And he said, "How about a building?" So he gave me the space in the building in Pontiac to use. And I've been there longer. I've been for a while. I was in like 2004. I'd been in 6 places in like 10 years, and I've been in Pontiac now 8 years. So it's amazing, and I'm getting all the spaces back, which is not good for Pontiac because it means there's no rent or revenue coming in. But
how long does a building have to be vacant before, or a space is vacant before a landlord wants you?
I don't. Like I said, I don't think it matters. The space in Pontiac was probably empty maybe a month. They need, a building can collapse on itself and start decaying so quickly. So I think that having somebody in there, turning the heat on and stuff like that, helps preserve the building. Plus,
you pay the utilities?
No, I don't pay anything. But again, the costs are still there because you're doing the cards, you're doing the press, you're doing the lighting. The lights cost, every time a light pops out, it's like $10.
So wait, the landlord's paying the electrical and the HVAC and everything?
Right, they'd have to minimally anyway, just so the pipes wouldn't freeze. So it's not super hot or super cold, but at least there's a little bit of heat and a little bit of air conditioning going. Keep things
you found them to be quite agreeable to having you have a presence.
Yeah. One of the owners the other day, I gave him a key from one of the people that had left, and I reclaimed the space. And she said, "Well, we think what you're doing is great and that you're a real sweetheart." At least we say that to your face. He was joking, I hope, but no, I think it's fluffing. It's good for real estate too, rather than showing an empty building. And it doesn't take, you're not taking up the room and rebuilding it. You're just putting paintings on the wall. So when the realtor comes through, it looks good. So
sure.
We're doing them a service too. We're fluffing it. And
do you have? I mean, they can kick you out on how much notice?
Well, I've been there 8 years. I thought that I'd be there the shortest,
Yeah, but so what is it? But extrapolating. I mean, I want to extrapolate to these artists so that they can go maybe emulate what you've done. I mean, will they give you at least 30 days or at least 90 days? What's fair?
That's what I was talking about. Trying to get some sort of long-term lease going. 3 months or longer if you can work it out for free, just to fix it up and all that stuff. It's got to be paid back. Considered equity. There's a thing in Michigan called artCORE that works through the state, and I went to them and said, this is what when I did the artCORE project where I got 6 spaces from the landlord, and I said we can do. The city owns most of those buildings in Detroit because of past taxes and the other things. They reclaimed them, and we can go to the city and I said I can't do it alone, and this artCORE. Whose job is to do these sort of things. Their light bulbs went off. They said every city in Michigan has an empty building, so we can do it, statewide. But then all their funding was cut, and they went from 20 people down to 2. So that was a lost shot. But what we talked about was having a lawyer there work out some sort of agreement, because artists can't pay a lot, even after the 3 months of free. And And my deal in some of the places was a percentage. I don't sell. I don't want to sell. I never wanted to sell as a museum, even though we could, because then that could be a driving force and say, well, is this work sellable or not? So, but that can be worked out too. Give them a percentage, 20%, 25% of your take, like it's going to happen. But with any gallery, you can have a good month and a bad month. But that's good. I tried the tax idea because we're nonprofit, and they usually say we got enough buildings that we can write off.
Yeah.
We don't need that.
What other things have you done that are creative and or unusual that somebody could extrapolate from or avoid?
Avoid. I don't know about avoiding. So what happens? I don't know. Don't get caught up in the mainstream or trying to figure out. You're talking about trends and stuff, and you're right. They cycle through, and just about the time they're happening, they've already pretty much cycled onto the next point. I remember a quote from John Kieran when he was painting in college. Everybody was doing installation work at the school, and they said, "What are you, crazy? Why are you painting?" He said, by the time I'm out of school, painting will be back. Don't worry. Everything cycles through. So, don't worry about the trends. Try to involve the public as much as you can. I don't know if they always understand what's happening, but I think they understand that they need art in their lives. Some ancient little thing in their brain, some instinct that art is important to them and that they need it.
Okay, cool. I noticed that a couple of people have questions. I want to ask you one more question, and we'll take some questions from the artists in the audience. Do you have a straight job, or is this your job?
This is it. I started out as an artist at OK Harris and had shows at Zolla Lieberman when I was in Chicago, and Space Gallery, which is long gone. In LA, I had a gallery. In New York, I was at Venus Slam when it was still in Soho. The Soho was still the place in the mid-'90s. And then was in big shows that traveled from Japan all the way across Europe and I kind of gave all that up because what I did was the art world here, I was kind of their darling in a way because I was doing things that other artists would do other places, but within the community. So, but I had a show in '99 that was closed down after 3 days. It was around the same time as the Sensation show. And so after that, I've been blacklisted. So I've got some work showing in a resale gallery in a town nearby. Birmingham is kind of a risky town, under a fake name, Big Eklund, that they sell for me. So try not to get the art world mad at you, or maybe it's a good thing if you do, I don't know. But that happened. And when that happened, it was interesting. And I won't tell that story. But anyway, so try to work with the art world, but not too closely because it can overwhelm you, I think, and redirect you where they would go, and try to keep your own independence. And I think they'll respect you more.
All right, so Perry texted me a question, and he wants to know, how do you get the buzz? What do you do to get the word out? Because you're not doing this by taking out advertisements in Detroit magazines. What do you do?
When I left OK Harris, they gave me their mailing list, their email list, their database. That was great. So I've got like 3,000 in that. And there's
not 3,000 Detroit names.
No, but a lot of them are Detroit. Maybe more than half. And they're just not just collectors, but artists and interior designers and things like that. The press, it's good to have press, but like I said, we've had the last 12 years, every month we've had an article in some newspaper. But people will still come up to me and say, "I've never heard of you," and they're in the art world here. So the press isn't always the best, not in Detroit. I was amazed. I've got a mental block on the guy that was in Exit to the gift shop.
Terry.
Yeah, but his tag name. But anyway.
Ultra, Mr.
something.
I'll look it
maybe
up.
Maybe it's better that we don't know. Anyway, when I was watching
Mr. Brainwash, that's what it was.
And it was just getting his story in the local free newspaper had like people wrapped around the block to get in, and press doesn't work here that way, and I don't know why. And we've shown. I ran in the Chicago Art Fair. I ran into Stella Vine, who was one of Saatchi's proteges, and she wanted to do a show in Detroit, so we did, and had press, and it didn't help. We got a handful of people out, and she was wonderful.
Do you say a lot of this is direct mail?
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, it used to be fax in the old days, which was golden. It really was. It's not like the internet. If you got a fax, people believe what they read. So I could put out anything. I had an ongoing weird conversation with Politi at Flash Art, and he'd print it no matter what I wrote him because it was on fax, so it was printed. But yeah, emails are a little tougher. You got to get the person to open them. But it helps. The internet helps. Facebook helps.
All right, I'm gonna put up. You guys, Jef Bourgeau, and Jef is with one F, is on Facebook, and you should all be his friends because he puts up the coolest pictures on Facebook. I'll show you some of them. And while I'm doing that, John, do you remember your question, John? Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, it could be a long conversation, but I think you know, the history of Detroit. I mean, I grew up in Highland Park on Davison, so you know, being right from down there, I certainly know Detroit. And you know, it's interesting your comment about, you know, as an artist that did go to these schools you mentioned and did graduate. You know, it was almost impossible to find success within Detroit.
Yeah, you know, I don't think you're going to find it here. Yeah, but I think you need a platform to go somewhere else to continue.
You mentioned something that in the earlier conversations we've talked about it before, about like the forces that propel careers and propel movements. You know, being galleries and being collectors, and certainly in Detroit, you have some huge collectors. You know,
Right.
Manugian, and you've got Taubman. Taubman owning Sotheby's is a huge force in the art world.
Yeah, and his children too.
And yet their interest in, you know, really living contemporary artists is minimal compared to, you know, 19th and 20th century artists. And so it really kind of sets the tone for collectors in the greater Detroit area when you have those two major players that are pointed in certain directions.
Yeah, but you've got plenty of other ones. You got the Frankel.
They're more into contemporary. They're definitely more into contemporary.
John Weaver, who's probably 44 now. He's been collecting since his late 20s. Major collector. He's been in magazines. Bill Silverman collected fluxes. How can you collect fluxes? He collected fluxes. He has the largest collection of fluxes art in the world. But it's in a building, like a mini museum, behind where Mona was downtown Detroit, and it's padlocked. And it only goes out to other museums around the world. And that collection will go, originally it was going to go to Estonia. It was like, what? But now it's going to go to Israel. So nothing really stays in Detroit. Most of the collections end up leaving as well as the artists. You know, most of these artists, not happening as much now because Detroit's got inexpensive real estate. So a lot of artists are sticking around for a few years to really build up and do what they want because they don't have the pressure of being in New York, doing what is trendy. They can kind of build their own oeuvre here, their own vision. But they're going to go somewhere else. And you always have to. If you're going to be an actor, you're going to go to Hollywood or New York. But you need a platform here to help build your reputation or your own vision before you go somewhere, and even a resume. And we don't really have that. And we don't have that connection, that networking that we used to have with these galleries. I try to remember a lot of them. There was Morris, and there was Zocha Keeley, and Pyle.
Yeah, so many of them are closed.
Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah. How do I get in touch with you, Jeff? Just get through the Mona?
Yeah, or on Facebook.
Okay.
If you know how to spell my name, just put a lot of vowels between a B and a G. Bourgeau.
Anybody else have questions? I don't see any more questions, Jeff. What's the problem?
I don't know. Maybe I answered them all. The thing I've seen a lot of interviews with people in Detroit, artists and other people in the business here, and they like to say that Detroit's like the Wild West, that anything goes here. And I saw another article that said that real estate here, as opposed to Bushwick or whatever it is, and is $1.50 there, it's $1 a square foot here. So that artists, you know, there are artists coming here. There's a big artist from New York that's moved here because of the cheap rent and the lure. A couple of years ago, I created a prize, the Prinzhorn Prize, because it sounded cool, Prinzhorn. And I created my dream list of artists, and I sent out, you know, they won the Prinzhorn Prize to the Museum of New Art. It's honorary. We have no money, but we can give you a show. And so all the artists responded. One of them was Nicole Eisenman, and she said, I just got off the phone with my dealer, Susan Vilmetter, or however you say her name, in L.A., and we were just jumping up and down for joy. We won the Prinzhorn Prize. We won the Prinzhorn Prize. Then they finally stopped and said, what's the Prinzhorn Prize? And but when I talked to her, she said, you know, we really want to come to Detroit, and even though it's honorary. And so I partnered up. Again, you have to be creative. I talked to Jessica Stockholder, who was one of the artists I chose, and she wanted plane tickets and a hotel room. So I went to CCS, the College for Creative Studies, and they have a lecture series where they give a stipend and they fly the person in and give them a room. So that's why I got some of the artists here. And the Lifetime Achievement Award, Prinzhorn Prize Award, went to Christo and Jean-Claude. It was just before she died. And she's a tough one. I thought, you know, it'd be great. We have a great building that you'll probably remember, John, the depot, the Detroit train station. It's totally empty. You can see right through it. And I thought it'd be great if Christo and Jean-Claude wrapped it or something. They had big naive ideas when I talked to them. And she was a tough ass, and she had to be to get things done. But I knew she had a heart of gold, and by the time we were done, she gave us a show of their work, and so we could keep we sell it, and we could keep all the money that we made from it. And then it was about a month later that she slipped on the ice and hurt herself and died.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's plenty of ways to be creative, and you don't have to have money.
That was a great example.
Artists always want to show someplace, no matter what level of their career. We had Olaf Bruning do a show. It was based on a show I did called Mona, where I did a whole show early on where artists just emailed a JPEG and we printed it here. So Olaf sent a whole show of work, JPEG work that we printed here. Totally trustworthy. We've never met or talked. I could be out there printing them and selling them, but I destroyed the JPEGs. So that's reassuring too, that there's such an element of trust in the art world, even though you hear about all the bad side of it sometimes. I remember being in Chicago for one of the art fairs, and they had prints in a hotel there, and they were on the bed, and this older woman came up to me, and it was the gallery director, and said, "Don't believe what you hear." And I thought, "I'm from Detroit. I don't hear anything, honey." And she said, "You know, I'm not a thief. I don't steal from my artists." And like, "Why are you telling me this? You know, and I don't trust you." So yeah, there's a lot of that, but there's still a lot of honest and trusting people out there. So that's encouraging.
That's a really good example of creativity. I thought that was good. Let's go to Jim. Jim. Hey. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
It seems like you're doing a lot of work, especially with Mona. Do you do that all on your own, or do you have some help doing that? How do you get that all that work?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm pretty brain dead today because we just had a 2-day opening. I have an intern from one of the colleges, but I usually don't. And when I had the whole building and had 7 spaces open, it was just me. And I'd have to go around and make sure the wine and all the food and everybody was happy. And luckily, everything is going fine. Nobody's ever hurt themselves. No work has ever been hurt. I don't have any insurance. I can't afford it. So yeah, it's crazy. And when I was in Detroit, I live about 35. No, I live about 45 minutes away from Detroit. So I used to drive in there every day. And now when I drive in there, I can't believe I drove here every day. But you just do it, I guess.
Yeah, very
There's
focused.
there's a certain something that drives you, because nothing else is happening here, I guess.
Okay, well,
And you don't have a career, so what else are you gonna do? I think it kind of kept me away from my career, that I wouldn't worry about it because I was doing all this other stuff, because it can be so frustrating, you know. You really need a gallery to go out there, and you can't, as an artist. There's a guy that came to me and said, I'm going to buy you a plane ticket and send you to LA and put you up in the best hotel, and you can go to all the galleries and you get a gallery. And I said, I can't just fly in and say, I'm here, give me a gallery. You know, you got to build up a reputation somehow. Although that did happen in Chicago, I must say. When I went there in like 92 or 3, and I went to all the different galleries, and Zolla Lieberman gave me a show right off. Roberta was really sweet. And so it can happen. In the very first show, I did everything wrong. I took Polaroids of my work, not slides, and I went into a gallery, and it was the worst thing. I got a show. And I've been to Chicago and gone to galleries there with they'll say, this is the best portfolio we've ever seen. And I'm sure they threw it in the trash when I left. Some good advice I got, I forget her name, she teaches at Yale, she's a Collier Shore, a pretty well-known photographer. And she was lecturing some kids at Mona about how to approach a gallery, and she said, you know, a book, you know, whether it's blurb.com or whatever, it's something that a gallery isn't going to toss away, like a CD. They're not going to pop that in their computer and waste their time. If you give them something real like that, they'll hang on to it and probably look at it. So if you're another good chance of getting a gallery. And I downloaded that about 3 years ago, the program. I haven't touched it since. I haven't had time, but I think that's a good source of finding a gallery, getting something real like that, make it look professional.
Do you mean something that's, you know, several pages thick, very glossy, high-end?
Well, look up blurb.com. It doesn't cost you any money, really, from what I understand. Of course, you'll buy one or two. You can do a soft bound, and I think it used to be like $15, $16 for 40 pages. Or you can do a hard bound. There's a gallery in town, that's all they use for their catalog. And if you design it right, it looks as professional as anything. I've partnered up with some art schools here where they've brought their students in. Instead of buying a textbook, they'll do a catalog through Blurb, but they'll spend the whole semester learning how to install a show and publicize it in one of the galleries I have. And at the end of it, they'll have their catalogs made. And they're very professional looking, and the kids are so happy about it. They have something to walk away with. And Blurb, you can buy as many as you want, and then you can refer people there to buy them. So you don't have to buy 30 or 40 or whatever. You can buy one or two, or however many you want to hand out, and the rest of the other people can go there and buy a lot of Blurb. At least that's the way it was 3 years ago.
So catalogs on demand, it sounds like.
Or make your own. There's a Korean artist that I showed. She made a beautiful handmade catalog, you know, and that becomes a work of art, and people aren't going to throw that away either.
You know, when I did the McCormick Place thing, and Anna was talking about how she was there over the weekend, I did a 120 blurb book on that job that I did. And then for all the artists who wanted to have their own copy, since the minimum order is 1, we could put each individual artist's work on the cover, you know, so that we would, you know, I just switch the cover art, and then they could show it to their children, their parents, and all of a sudden get the respect that they've been deserving for a long time.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great resource.
Yeah, you know, and I know a gallery that publishes those, and if you want to buy a copy of the catalog, you pay either $10, $12 to Blurb, and they print that one copy and send it to you. It's not a bad way to go. You know, Mac has something similar that's more proprietary, but, you know, there's a couple. There's Blurb, and there's another one I'm blanking on the name.
Because an eye or something, I had a group from New York that used it, and the quality wasn't as good. I think Blurb, the quality is pretty good, I think. I'd stay with blurred.
I'm happy with blurred, but there's others. Does anybody else have a question? I've got one more, and if you don't have anybody else, we'll let Jeff go after my loaded question.
Loaded.
Well, stick your hand up while Jeff's answering my loaded question. What do you think of Art Prize?
You know, I hated it when it started. I thought, you know, reality shows and all this other stuff, what a pile of crap. But it galvanized the city. Grand Rapids has always been Dutch Reform, Amway, very conservative, Republican, that whole side of the state. So you wouldn't expect art to be important to them. But with the Meyer Gardens, it's built itself up. They have a Louis Bourgeois and I forget who else. Plenty of great sculptures there through Amway and Meyer, which is a shopping place. So yeah, I was totally against it, but it was amazing. The whole state got excited about art. People were talking about art that wouldn't normally talk about art because it brought it down to that level of the common person to get excited about it. And people go there and have fun. So I think it's a good thing. Initially, this year I didn't feel the excitement. I didn't hear the press or whatever. But I changed my mind about it. You know, I thought, you know, how goofy can you be?
You know, this year they've got some jurors that are selecting a juried winner as opposed to solely, so they have more than one winner as opposed to a popular winner. The popular winner the last 2 years in a row has been one woman who last year, I don't remember 2 years ago, but last year was a huge mosaic crucifixion. And, you know, that tends to be what I think wins that kind of show. And I don't know, I'm torn because I like art to be accessible and available to the public at large.
Well, you need a balance. I remember when, I don't know if I remember Picasso's sculpture in Chicago. Everybody hated it. The public hated it. Now it's on the stationery for the city, and they put the baseball hats on it and whenever the team's winning or whatever. So they embrace it now. So yeah, you need some kind of buffer sometimes, or at least, or a mix of both. The public needs to be part of it, but they should have somebody else come along. American Idol.
I don't know. I got to go look at it, but I have serious doubts. I don't know. I got to go, I guess, but I don't want to.
I did too. But then I heard the guy Jef the son or whatever, and he said, you know, I don't know anything about art. I just have the money, and I wanted to invest it in this, and I think it'll be fun. It'll be good for the city. So he had no pretensions. So that helped me deal with it better than before. And in Michigan, it really did, at least the first year. We've got a thing in Detroit. It's the Kresge Foundation does it, and it gives art fellowships prizes to like 15 artists, gives them $25,000 each. So that's a lot of money altogether every 2 years. 1 year it's for literature and music. The next year, they just started this. The next year it's for art. But anyway, this guy in Grand Rapids really pushed the PR on what he was doing. But with this Kresge Prize, it's like, it should be like the Tate. You know, people should know about it. People should want to move to Detroit to be able to get it. But it's under the radar, and the artists know about it. You usually know who the jurors are more than you know who won them. And things like that can help make a career coming out of Detroit. But at least finally somebody like the Kresge Foundation is giving money straight to the artist. Usually it goes to the institution. So I'm not going to complain about it. I just wish that they had that better PR on it or understood how they could use it. But maybe they don't want to. Anyway.
Did Matt Kelly's career have any influence on Detroit? Did his death have any influence?
No. No. Unfortunately. James Lee Byers went to Wayne State, grew up, I think he was born in Livonia or something, but he grew up here and went off and became famous out in Europe and places. But when the MCA in Chicago had their opening, what was in the lobby? There was a big James Lee Byers sculpture, which was amazing. And there was a show of Byers' work in Europe maybe 5-6 years ago, and in Germany. And in the blurb it said it would be coming to Detroit. And I talked to the director of the museum several times over the years. Oh yeah, we're working on that. It never came. So yeah, it's like electronic music or anybody else. Dana Schutz has made a great career, and she's from Detroit, and she's never had a show here. Crystal and John Claude never had a show here until I did the little poster thing. And what's your face? Anyway, the list goes on. But Mike Kelly, he got some press. The people here were upset. There's still the people that are part of the U of M group that he was friends with and had his band Destroy All Monsters. Niagara is a Lichtenstein type painter that's still here and just had a show. And she had a painting of Mike that she had done at the opening. So people are aware of him, but yeah, once you leave, you're gone. When I went to Chicago and had a show at Zolla Lieberman, and the same when I had a show in New York, I thought, okay, great, I'm selling my work for $2,500, maybe I'll double when I go there. So I get in the door of the gallery, and they say, you're from Detroit, so you have to lower your prices from what they were in Detroit even. It's like, what? What's this about? So yeah, so it's a crazy mixed-up world in Detroit. It's the Wild West. So come packing.
All right.
Anything can happen.
Yeah, and some of it does.
Yeah, some does stick to the wall.
And all right, so I think we've had enough.
Okay.
And I appreciate. I think what this is good for is to encourage artists to extrapolate from their experiences, to identify the core values and the things that are intrinsically important to them, and to not necessarily have to be pigeonholed into the existing way of doing things, but notice that there are lots of opportunities and ways to go about getting attention for your art and your career the way you have, and that you don't know necessarily where, once you put yourself out into that trajectory, where it's going to take you.
Yeah. Yeah, get some friends together and do a pop-up gallery or something, even if it's in a strip mall or something, and have somebody write about it. Yeah, just be creative. You have to get the attention. The galleries have their stables. They're usually closed or very limited on how they open up. And you need to get some sort of attention, I suppose, and the best way is to go out and do your own shows as a group, or if you can do it on your own, I don't know. But
Jeff, I respect what Mona's done. I respect what you do and what you've done with Mona, and I really appreciate you being here tonight. I've just unmuted everybody, but thank you very much for tonight, and we'll be in touch. Jeff, thank you.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night. Oh, hold on. I'm stopping the recording, and I want to